All right, hey, this is Jose Galison with No Way Jose on the Liberty Movement YouTube channel. Today I'm with Peter Meade, author of How to Be a Champion, Volume 1. Hey, what's up, Peter?
Hey, what's up?
Yeah. So, question one, why did you write this book?
So personal motivation's always been something that's very important to me, kind of maximizing your personal potential. Um, I've noticed as I looked around, especially in society, you see stuff on the internet all the time. There's a lot of dudes that have no motivation and they're not really maximizing their personal potential, not being honest with themselves, taking the easy way out. And I wanted to do what I could to kind of pitch in and maybe change that and give them kind of guidance and a point in the right direction with what I know.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one thing I got out of this. I read it and it was like, this is kind of like perfect, like something for a young man. I mean, specifically for me, I guess I felt like it appealed to a man. I mean, it could appeal to a woman too. It's not one or the other, but I don't know if it's just the way society is now, but it's just definitely something I felt like appeals to a young man. Um, One thing we've talked and I've told you, I kind of have some minor disagreements and we'll get into that, but like just little stuff around the margins. But overall, this would be like a great like thing for like a young adult to read. Kind of like it's because it's short. It's like a basically an intro to like essentially kind of like philosophy without coming off that way, and it kind of allows them to like an easy read. And I think there's something too. Like I mean, this is a common thing with religion too, where it's like having a canned ideology. There's some sort of benefit to that. Where like yes, you may disagree around the margins and stuff, but like having like a here's your prepackaged like belief system, go for it. It's a good thing to have, and I think it's a good place to start. Even like I said, I have minor disagreements. Probably like 98% I agree with. Just it's all like silly stuff around the edges. But yeah, so I think let's get started. And we're gonna do chapters because there's 7 chapters for this. First chapter was on mindset. So I don't know if you want to give a quick summary of the mindset chapter, and we can kind of discuss.
Basically, the mindset is just like a champion's mindset in that one thing I've tended to notice, and I noticed this about myself too, in my early years, like in my teens and almost into my early 20s, is that operating with a scarcity mindset, you'll stay at a job you don't like because I don't want to, you're so comfortable. People don't change unless they get uncomfortable. But if you push yourself into that uncomfortable zone, you you tend to you tend to go for more and you tend to do better. You stick with what you have out of the fear of wanting to not lose that, as opposed to maximizing what you could go get if you were to try. Visualizing success, plotting out your steps, and trying to actually going for and achieving those things. I mean, it translates to a lot of different things. Employment, personal goals like in the gym, or like me, for example, I like jujitsu. Um, even girls. You can stay with a woman that nags at you if you want to, or you can try. You can try, and maybe go get that young little hottie, with an ass on her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. One thing I really liked is that you kind of like had a mantra. You had the stay calm, stay confident, stay focused was the mantra that you focused on there. I mean, my mantra has always been kind of strong body plus strong mind equals strong man. And I mean man in like an all-encompassing like human sense. So, but I mean, I really did like it. Like, for example, like the calm thing, like I've been reading up a lot of the Stoics lately. And like, that's a very common thing is like kind of like cut out the bullshit. Like there's no reason about stressing on shit that you can't control, or really even the stuff that you can control. There's no reason to stress about it. Just get that shit done. You know what I mean? Like that. So like, I do think it's a very concise mantra, cause you got then you got the confidence, which I mean, like I said, like that comes with balance. You overdo it, that's cockiness, and then the focus is kind of like the friggin' like what wraps it all up, and it's kind of like the integral part, like to keep on fucking going. Which I mean that places so much stuff. Like we can do it later, and like the exercise stuff, like the focus, just like I don't know. For example, like reading. Like it wasn't until probably like over 25 that I got back into reading again, and like it just was like I had to focus on just like even if I just didn't feel like reading that day, read a page, and then you end up finding yourself reading more. Just like a focus, like just to keep going. So.
Oh yeah. I like that you said that too. Also too, just read a page. I haven't really written about it, but yeah, stay calm, stay confident, stay focused is a super helpful tool. But no 0 days is another one. Just don't do nothing.
Yeah.
No 0 days. Yeah, that's really important. That's actually really smart. Just read a page. Yeah.
Yeah. I would have to say you did bring up the abundance outlook at one point, which kind of came off to me as optimism. I don't know if you were trying to get at it, but I've always been one that I've never really accepted the false dichotomy of optimism and pessimism. I've always more been like a realism, but I've always kind of preferred to like put a little bit of a tinge of optimism on it. So that'd be like one minor thing like I might disagree with, but even then, like reading it, it's kind of like it's almost like you're describing that same exact thing. But like I said, this is kind of like a basic, so it's definitely like something like I said, like if you're given to a young man, you don't want to overcomplicate something, you know, which is, I mean, that's kind of like it comes in later in like a later chapter. You bring in like don't overcomplicate things. So like I said, like this is kind of like philosophy for beginners, which is like, you know, something you give to your 16-year-old cousin or something, you know, and improve him, you know, because a lot of this stuff is like stuff that me now that like almost 30 is like kind of wish I could go back and tell 20-year-old me, you know, because I was like, God, you're fucking retarded. But, you know, but yeah. And I know you also brought in another point. You brought in is to reduce doubt and sadness, which I feel like kind of ties into the whole calm thing because it's like you just kind of like cut out all that bullshit. There's no reason. There's no sense in in doubting yourself or sadness. You know, I mean, especially once you're sure of yourself. You know, if you're confident, there's no reason with doubt. You know, I mean, and a lot of that comes with competency too, which is like something about building yourself up. So yeah, I just threw a lot at you there.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
No, you're totally right.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good analogy, you know, because everybody knows boys and girls. It's a super easy analogy, and wherever doubt goes, sadness will follow. That's really important, and I think that's why I emphasize so much on the optimism and staying confident. Is, you know, you don't give in to doubt, and you won't have that sadness happen. You know, it's not win or lose; it's win or learn.
Yeah.
And that's very important. I think it's super important because so many people fall prey to that. You know, there's so many opportunities and so many things that they could do that they won't ever accomplish because, oh fuck, what if I fail? Or oh fuck, what if I don't do this? Oh fuck, what if you wake up at 45 and you're like, holy shit, I've been doing the same thing for 25 years and I've hated it this whole time. You know, that's a terrible fate. It's a fate worse than death, in my opinion. I just can't stand it.
There's no sense of it, you know. So let's move into chapter 2. This is probably the one I actually have the most disagreement with you, but I also think you're right in a sense because this chapter's honesty. And I mean, especially, I mean, I've read a lot of Ayn Rand. I've been reading a lot of like egoism, like Stirner lately. And like, I've kind of always thought that honesty is one of those things that on the whole, it's probably a good thing to have, but not to sound like a shitbag. But there are times where honesty is not the best case scenario. Like, for example, let's make a hypothetical. Let's say I kill someone. Obviously, I shouldn't kill someone. But we're in this hypothetical. I did it in cold blood, whatever. Should I admit to it? No. I'd be an idiot at that point. There's no going back. There's no unkilling the person. There's no positive that's going to come out of here. So, but let me fall back on, I understand why you would do it. Because, like, that's a very deep issue, honesty in general. And it's better, I think, if we're going to give like a young man an ideology to start with, just to simplify it, because, I mean, let's be real, when you're 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, you're young, dumb, and full of cum. Like, there's not much going on up there, you know? So if you try to give them this, like, you know, nuanced idea of honesty and go on and on with it, they're just going to... So it's honestly like 99% plus of the time, just being honest is the better way to go. Because it comes into, if you're not honest, then now you get a reputation of, you know, being the dishonest person. It can negatively affect you. Like, I'm in no way saying you should be on the whole a dishonest person, but there are situations in where I've always said I'm honest, but not to a fault.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know if you've ever studied ethics, any type of depth. It kind of comes with my job and what I do for a living. So there's actually two trains of thought when it comes to ethics. There's what's called Kantian deontological, which is, so let me give you an example. So there's a starving little girl, and this starving little girl says, will you please help me? Will you please feed me? You've got two options. You can spend money in your pocket. Let's say you have a job, you've worked for it, you've earned it, and then you go and buy her something to eat. You get her a Happy Meal, whatever. That's the ethical way. Well, that's one train of thought considering ethics, whereas there's what's called Kantian ethics. No, I just said Kantian ethics. I can't remember the other name of it, but to make a long story short, it's they don't even care how you do it, as long as you get the money to feed the little girl. You could rob a train. You can rob an old lady to feed the little girl. There are scenarios and practical applications where it's okay to rob the train to feed a little girl, especially if the net overall happiness is greater than the sadness it would cause if you were to just rob this train, for example. But I was more leaning towards Kantian, deontological, versus utilitarian. Utilitarian is the word I'm using, the word I was looking for. Utilitarian ethics, you know, you rob Peter to pay Paul, whereas Kantian, deontological, you work for it, you earn it, and you make sure you only go about it in an ethical manner. I will say this though, as a caveat to that point, it's the person who would not rob the train to feed a little girl, who has a family, who has the kids, he does the whole deal, lives his whole life and says he's, I'm happy I did the right thing. But it's the utilitarian who gets sucked up by cheerleaders in the back of the Bentley limousine. So it's you know what I
Yeah.
mean. So
Yeah.
there's definitely a train of thought, and I'm not going to turn a bunch of people loose with that type of information, especially with a young mind for the molding.
Exactly.
So
That's kind of what I was getting at. That it's, do you really want to complicate things over? Because I mean, these are like things I've thought about like quite a bit, and it's like, and even then, like I've said, it's on the whole, it's always better. And there is some sort of like, that like it kind of makes you feel good, to be honest, as well. There's something to that. Like you brought up at one point that lying is equal to fear, and that's entirely true. But it's like at some point, sometimes fear is a logical thing. So it depends on the scenario, but most cases you want to put yourself, it's really almost like you want to put yourself in the situation before that where that's not going to be an issue. So I mean, but sometimes you get in that hypothetical where now it's an issue and the only way out is lying. And I think for me personally with ethics I've studied is it's kind of almost situational. Like, for example, it's like the lying to a cop. Like, this is the liberty movement. Like, we're all, generally
that's 100%
libertarians.
appropriate
Yeah.
in every
Yeah.
situation ever.
Exactly. Fuck them. But yeah. But I mean, it's the idea of that, there's essentially violence that's going to be followed with the honesty, So I mean, that's kind of like the easiest scenario. It's kind of like why would you tell the truth to them? It's like, and it's more like I don't know. I think on the whole, it generally serves you best. I mean, like I said, I've been studying egoism, so I think it's like, and I'm not saying I'm an egoist necessarily, but it's been something that I find interesting. It's kind of like, it's almost like what serves you, and generally, what's good for the goose is good for the gander type thing. So, like, what serves you is usually is what's good on the whole. So it's usually generally good to be honest. But if you're put in a situation where it's not good to be honest, it's almost silly to be. But like I said, we said this is like you want to simplify things as much as possible, and this is like a 35-page book. So and that's whole other giant discussion.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to touch on is that that's more geared towards being honest with those who are close to you, who you care about whether you hurt or not. So you're not going to lie to them for personal gain, for example.
Yeah.
That's kind of more where I was coming from, as opposed fuck the cops 100%.
Yeah.
I'll lie to these assholes 24/7. I'll be totally in the right, and I'll have no reason to lie to them. I'll still do it to them just because fuck you. That's why. Yeah, I was more about your circle, your tight circle. I probably should have specified.
But even then, like I said, for the purpose of what this book is, I actually think that was the proper approach, because that is such a nuanced discussion, and there's so many different trains of thought, and you don't want to complicate a young mind with that. It's almost better to have this like canned ideology, and then later you can kind of have these deep thoughts and go off on your own. For the purposes,
I tried to, but I couldn't top the 10 Commandments, so whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I got you. All right, let's move on to chapter 3. Let's talk about the goal map. You want to give me a summary of what with that?
This is super important. So if you don't plot out your steps, I don't know if you've ever so you're into reading. Have you ever read The Art of War?
I actually have not. That's one that I've always kind of like been like that'd be a good one to read. I just haven't.
Let me tell you, I was so very, very lucky that I picked up this book. I picked it up when I was 23, 24. It changed my life, and I promise you, it changed my life for the better. Like, it struck a fucking chord with me. So they talk about things like the general who makes many deliberations is the one who wins wars, and the general who deliberates not is the one who suffers the shame of defeat. If you don't think about what you want to do before you do it, if you don't think about what do I need to do, what resources do I need to have, even if you were to, for example, just try and get into college, if you just waltz in one day and say, sign me up for a class, if you don't have the money for it, if you haven't done the things you need to, you're going to fail. It's the general who makes many deliberations is the one who wins wars. That's so important, having a goal map. And not only that, when you take the things that you want and you put them on paper, you develop a deeper understanding of yourself. And if you can establish a time frame, and if you maintain a realistic time frame, and if you were to establish kind of like these outcomes and realistic time measured outcomes without over exhausting yourself with kind of like an overcomplicated schedule, you're going to see yourself. You'll see your fucking heart and soul on paper, and it's a wild experience. It's something that happened to me when I was very young, and I was like, holy shit, this is who I am. It's wild. It was such a wild moment. That was one of the major motivators for wanting me to take this, whatever it was that I was feeling at the time, and I wanted to put it on paper, and I wanted to share it with people because that struck such a huge chord with me. It struck such a huge note with me, and I wanted to share it. And I think that this book it kind of comes across as appealing to a younger the younger male population, because that's who I was. That's who I was at the time. I was a
Mhm.
young man. I was transitioning from late adolescence to early adulthood, and something came over me. Something happened to me, and I was definitely a foolish little boy, but I grew up to be a wise young man, and I'm still riding that fucking success to this day, 32
Yeah.
years old. So that's where that was coming from, and that was the major motivating factors. I love this chapter. It's one of my favorite chapters. It's something that's I spoke from here. Having a goal map and understanding where you want to be, you can develop a more clear picture of where you want to go. And then when you put these things on paper, you can think about all these scenarios. Like, if I were to take this step here, I could make this, or I could do this. But if you're out there just fucking lost in the sauce, just doing what you can. You're only treading water. You know, you're fucking doggy paddling. But if you have an idea of where you want to go, bro, you're gonna fucking fly, dude. It'll change your life. I promise you. If anyone else were, if any person were to only read one chapter, that's the one you want to read. That's the one you want to get in touch with, because you're going to get in touch with yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you mean. I mean, I have to admit, I don't think I've ever actually like literally physically put a tape to a pen to paper, but I do a lot of like thinking in solitude, and I've kind of like already developed a plan in my head, and it's like, yeah, I never put it to pen to paper, but it's kind of always had it in my head of what I want to do, and you know, it's something I thought about a lot, and I do like how you tied this chapter into like you tied it in a lot into you talked about like making small goals, and that's like a big thing where like lifting kind of teaches you a lot about life, because it's like you don't come in there and you go like for example, I've squatted over 600 before, but I
Holy
never
shit.
I wasn't like I didn't start lifting at 13 years old and go I'm going to squat 600. I started lifting at 13 years old, and then it goes I'm gonna squat 135 or whatever my current like where I was at, and you build from there, and then and even then it's not even that, you really just set like, no, what I'm gonna do is next week I'm gonna be better, next week I'm gonna be better, next week I'm gonna be better, and you can set small goals, and I mean like that kind of applies to sports and like just all sorts of stuff like reading, especially because like when I got back into reading, like I started with comic books. Like I didn't start with like right now, like I said, I'm reading The Ego in Its Own by Max Stirner. I mean, like, if you told me fucking, 6 years ago I was gonna be reading that, I'd be like, what? Like, I'm reading Civil War right now. Like, like that's ridiculous. I would never be reading, a philosophy book. Like, like, yeah. And so it's like, it's kind of like making those small goals. And next thing you know, like I'm enjoying stuff like that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still go back and I read comic books still. I mean, I don't do it on the reg, but I usually will like in between, but it's, what I mean? Like I've built up to that, and it's like, yeah, I'm kind of rambling at this point, but you get what
No,
I'm
that's
saying.
actually
Like,
really smart. But
yeah,
you're totally right. You're 100%
yeah,
right. But also, to where I was coming from, I get that, and that's actually like a really good kind of like sister point to where I
mm-hmm.
was headed. But if you have like a very large goal, if you have like these huge things you want to do, the point I wanted to make is that you can do them. You can fucking do anything. I promise you, you can fucking do anything as long as you put your mind to it. And you can look at this gigantic boulder of a task, or you can break that thing down into pebbles. And I promise you, like one foot after the other, you're gonna get there. You're gonna run into
Mm-hmm.
some difficulty along the way. You're gonna make some friends. Some friends become enemies. Some enemies become friends. But it's fucking possible. It's 210 fucking percent possible. Don't let the sheer size or mass of a task deter you away from it. You got to find out where you want to go, and then you plot your steps from there. It's a fucking beautiful experience, bro. I promise you. I've been on some wild adventures. The transition from the army to civilian life was not easy. It was kind of like a weird one. But because I especially like I joined very young. I joined when I was 17, so I had no experience with the fucking civilian life. I didn't even finish high school, bro. I'm a fucking high school dropout. So that was like the task of like become a successful adult and like succeed at life.
Yeah.
That was my gigantic fucking task. But I'm out here fucking moving and shaking, bro. I'm out here doing some really big things, and it's really, really cool. It can
Yeah,
be
it's cool.
done. It's a
What?
huge.
How
Go
long
ahead,
you
dude.
been out? Just, I mean, I know this is a little off topic, but I'm just curious. How long you been out?
I got out when I was 21. I turned 32 in
Okay,
two
cool.
weeks.
I didn't
Yeah.
know if it was more like a recent thing. I was just curious because I know that is like a big transition for a lot of people, especially if you were
Yeah.
just like a generic grunt. I don't know what your MOS was, but I
So
know
I
a
got
lot of
very lucky.
times. Yeah.
I
I'll go
got
for
very
it.
lucky. I'm a bit of a math nerd, so I actually used to work with money. So I actually used to work in the finance office. I'm not trying to make
Okay.
myself sound tougher than I was. I had a
That was,
fucking
yeah.
desk job, but even still, that was my very first full time job, and it was totally
Yeah.
wild. Going from a high school dropout, now you're in charge of $210,000 a day. Now
Yeah.
you're out. Good fucking luck, tough guy. It was weird. It was so weird, and it was like this wild tide of life, and like I had to navigate it. And I'd say initially, I had some problems. I had some problems. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad. But no,
That's
I
funny.
totally I like almost went to jail and shit. But like I turned my life around. I got real smart. Got real disciplined. And that was really important to me. Yeah.
Now you do jail
I'm
shit,
a,
just don't get caught.
That's what I'm coming from. You lie to the cops every fucking time. You don't tell them the truth. And listen, if it's the truth, you stay quiet. If it's a lie, you just lie your ass off. That's it.
Yeah.
Fuck
Yeah,
'em.
I mean, I'm not against doing illegal stuff as long as you ain't hurting nobody. I don't care. But just don't be an idiot. Don't get caught. All right, let's move into. We kind of like touched on a little bit. Chapter 4: exercise and eating right. I don't know if you want to do a little summary on that. I mean, I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory.
So going back to being a veteran, at 17 I dropped out of high school and then I got into the army. Then I really got into I got into things like doing unarmed combatives, for example. I really took off with that, and I just like the very physical aspect of it. I wasn't a big fan of running, but I got back into it. I definitely enjoyed seeing a progression, and I think it was very cool transitioning from later adolescence. See, I didn't get into that stuff until I was 17. So I really enjoyed the progression from late adolescence into early adulthood and seeing, transition to like a man physique, that was very cool. And I fell off the wagon for a little while. I started smoking a lot of weed, for example. I felt like, I dropped out of high school. I didn't get a lot of the, party, have a good time, get it out of your system. So it came for me later in life, and college came for me later in life. So I fell off. I got super fucking fat. I was almost like 200 pounds. I was looking like shit. I looked like I was like, yo, someone needs to talk to him. He's gonna fucking kill himself. I just looked like a total mess. Yeah, I looked like a total lame. I looked like a loser. Yeah. And then one day I woke up. I looked at myself in the mirror. I'm like, yo, you are fucking fat, boy. So At 25, I got back into the gym. Started lifting. It came right back to me. It was really, really awesome, and it fostered a sense of confidence in me. When you're in the army, because you're maintaining a physique for someone else, it kind of doesn't hit you super hard. But when you're maintaining it for yourself, it fosters confidence within you, because you're not giving it away to someone else. It's for you, and it's going to protect you. So yeah, it was really awesome. It was so great. It was one of the best things I've ever done for myself. I bought myself a gym membership as a 25th birthday present, and I've not fucking looked back.
Yeah, that's one thing. Like eating right and exercising, and eating right is vague. I mean, really, it's like, does it serve your goals is really what it comes down to when it comes to eating right. So, I've been in all sorts of different shapes. I've been in, CrossFit shape. I've been just, a fatty that's, when I squatted I actually got up to 625. When I squatted that, I was, I wouldn't say I was fat, but I was fucking chonky. I was, because all I was doing was, I was lifting hard, and doing low reps, fucking eating everything in sight, and just lifting like a fucking animal. And I'm not gonna lie, I was saucing a little bit. For legal reasons, is obviously a joke. But I was a little bit on the sauce. I was a little bit on the sauce. So all I was doing was just fucking bulking like crazy. And so I got kind of fat, but it kind of served my goals for the time. And later I kind of swapped it up. And I've been in all different shapes. So, but it just depends on what you're doing. If you're doing a ton of running, you're gonna want to eat more carbs. Stuff like that. I don't know. There's a million different. You could have a huge long conversation, but the dieting thing more just depends on your goals. For example, if you're a powerlifter, just fucking eat everything. If your only care is to get huge and get strong as shit. As long as I would advise not to stay like that forever. It's probably not the healthiest thing, but it's not bad every now and then, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. There's so much to lifting too that it's just, I don't know, male, female, whatever. I just think there's so much to it because it gives you so much confidence and competence. It's kind of the same thing. I think a lot of it goes into reading too. If there's two things I would tell young me is, I guess I was already working out. I've been working out since I was 13. That's one of the few things I've stuck with all the time. But I would tell any young man or woman, read and work out. Those are probably the two biggest things, because you develop so many skills from them, and you're also you develop confidence, you develop competency. Just so much branches off from that. For example, me, I don't know. I feel lifting and this partially, I did wrestling too, and I've done some martial arts, and you develop humility. So but at the same time, you feel competent. So it's just I walk in any room and I don't not saying a normal guy would feel scared, but there's just this sense of confidence of whatever may come, I can handle it. Maybe I'm not saying I can beat everybody's ass in here, but I can get to safety, or I can do what I got to do. I can handle myself.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's for real. Because if you combine, weightlifting and martial arts, I'm not saying I'm the strongest man in the room everywhere I go, but I'm fucking top 3 no matter where I go. I'm not scared of shit no more. And when I walk into a room, it's I'm so glad that I did that for myself. When I walk into a room, other people feel it, bro. You kind of just project this confidence. It's one of the best things you can do for yourself. 200% agree.
Yeah, and then that kind of plays into the reading too, like the intelligence, having your mind that kind of like helps raise your intelligence, keep your head on a swivel, just being aware of your surroundings. So like you'll always kind of just feel confident no matter where you go, like not even from a physical standpoint, from a mental standpoint as well. Because there's something too when you like are talking to people, and if you don't have a whole lot going on up in here, and they people can tell, and it too when they start talking, you're like, God, I feel dumb. But if you're able to like talk to people and they realize like, oh shit, like I'm talking to somebody with something going on here, like you know what I mean? It's the same kind of feeling, but in a different sense as like walking into a room and knowing like ain't nobody gonna fuck with me.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I don't want to live life no other way.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think we kind of touched on everything there. Let's move into chapter 5. The minimizing toxins. I know I kind of brought up the sauce already, so that'll be a fun topic. I know you brought up in that, like, don't fuck with sauce. I mean, we could probably have a discussion there, but I don't know if you want to give a little summary of that chapter for us.
So there's a couple of different types of toxins. I mean, shit, even chasing girls to a fault, even chasing girls to a fault can distract you from what it is you want to do. I definitely kind of presented a bit of an idealistic type type of mind frame. But just kind of minimizing, staying away from that stuff. Being on social media for too much, letting it suck away your time from you. Time is the most finite resource. It's not money. Yeah. It's not money. They'll fucking print money all day, every day. Time is your most finite resource, and your body is your fucking temple. So if you're drinking yourself, half fucking stupid, or if you're fucking with cocaine, for example, smoking a ton of weed, just turning into a total fat boy, running yourself ragged, you're not going to go anywhere in life. You're not going to enjoy life, and if that's the only source of your pleasure, that's all you're ever going to seek out. But life is a fucking buffet, dude. There's so many things you can take from life, and not let it's really shitty if you let those things, take your fucking time from you. Things like social media or chasing girls, for example. It just sucks up all your fucking time, and you're not going to maximize your potential. It's gonna pull you away from your goals, and that's actually part of one of the reasons why you'll wake up 45 years old and be like, oh my God, I'm still doing the same things I was doing 25 years ago. Yeah. Where the fuck is my time gone? And if you're fucking with drugs or bullshit like that, that's if you make it to 45. You know what I mean?
Video games is probably the biggest one. Like, I know
it's huge.
I know I'm probably gonna piss some people off, but I was reading that like, fuck yeah, you're right. Like, tough shit. But I don't even get it. Like, I mean, maybe it's just because for me, I don't get it. Because I mean, as a young man, I played video games. Like when I was in high school, I played like a decent amount. But even then, I was always consumed with like working out, chasing girls, doing sports. I mean, I'd play a little bit. I'd smoke some weed, play some video games. Like nothing too crazy, but like. I mean, I did it a little bit as a young adult, but then I just kind of like petered off, I mean, I'm but yeah, I mean, I have a wife, a family too. And then like, I guess I have so many different things going on. That's just like the value of it just was never there. And it's just like, I know people that are like in their 30s and 40s and they're still like, oh yeah, I'm going to get on COD and be on there for 3-4 hours tonight. I'm like, what are you doing?
12.
Like,
12,
yeah, it's like
12 hours.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing with your life? Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I still have my like Xbox 360 from like forever ago. And like I keep it just out of nostalgia. And every once in a great while, I'll play some video games. I might play with my daughter, play like an old UFC game or something. But even then, like, it's like maybe a half hour, just every once in a great while. Just, I don't know. I mean, maybe I always joke and say I'm a boomer in a millennial's body, but like, I don't see the point in it. Like, I'd rather do something constructive that not saying it's something I wouldn't enjoy, but it's like, there's just nothing there. Like, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's not even really that fun for me anymore. I mean, it's a little bit fun, but not that much. I don't know. It's just so simplistic. A happy distraction. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I'll kind of go through these. You got alcohol, tobacco. Those are pretty obvious. You brought those up. Let's touch on the sauce. I kind of want to discuss that a little bit because you said just straight up, like, stay away from it. And I would, on the whole, advise stay away from it. But I think there is something to. I mean, I don't know. It depends. Like, I think it's one of those things. If you handle with maturity, you'll be all right. But the problem is, like we've said before multiple times, this is written to a different audience, and this is an audience that probably can't handle it with maturity. Because I've always been kind of annoyed with people who are just like, just stay away from it, just say no. It's the kind of the same people who are like, the dare audience. It's like, I mean, it depends on what you're about. There's certain people that would never say do it. If you're someone just getting into lifting or whatever, what are you doing? You're just like, it's just dumb. Like, why? Like, you're not even anywhere near a plateau. You're just like, it's just why? You're just dicking with your endocrine system for no reason. Like, you have no idea what you're doing. Like, but then also there's a lot of people too who I think there's a lot of like emotional maturity that needs to be had before you can mess with that. Because I mean, when I was on it, like, I mean, it it did kind of like make me more irritable, but like I've always felt like I'm a pretty emotionally mature person, so it wasn't an issue. Like I was able to control myself, but not everybody's like that. I've known people who've messed with it who are absolute just nightmares and just like, dude, what are you doing? You know, like, and ironically, ironically, those are usually the people who abuse it too. Like, will like cycle for like 3 times as long as they're supposed to, come off of it and be like, why are my nipples puffy? It's like, well, because you're an idiot.
yeah. There really is a science to it, and you almost need more than just a beginner's understanding of like the medical sciences and like you said, the endocrine system and how fucking testosterone and estrogen have the relationship. Just as a general rule, now if you can, and you'll look juicy for the girlies, 100%. Sure.
Yeah.
Be careful, bro. Be careful is all I'm saying. Not especially younger adults or people who don't have who don't have a medical understanding more than just apply pressure when it's bleeding.
Yeah,
you can really run into some trouble.
I'm not gonna lie though, dude. Like it is intoxicating too, like because it raises your testosterone, and like I don't think you realize until you mess with your testosterone how great testosterone feels. It feels amazing. It's just like walking around on a cloud all the time. You sleep amazing, you fuck amazing, you friggin' you're just like you walk in every room and you feel just super confident. Just like you just feel like there's no way to describe it other than like alpha. You feel alpha as fuck. Just all the time.
Yo, I know where you're coming from. Like I dabbled with it too. I met a dude with his pro card. I dabbled with it too. I felt fucking fantastic. But when I cycled down off, now I was very lucky. I didn't have no symptoms at all. I didn't get any symptoms other than like I kind of just went back to normal size, pretty normal size. For my frame. I miss it. I shouldn't say that if I'm trying to tell young adults to stay away from it, but I know exactly what you're saying. But there comes a time when you got to be easy with it.
That's what I'm saying. It comes with the maturity, like because I feel like the average person doesn't have that. There's also that feeling when you come off where you lose a lot of your gains. I think generally speaking, you are a little bit better for it. You keep some of your gains, but there's a depressing feeling when you've been like on a month and you've been just like gain, and then you come off and now you're just like, if anything, you're losing and you're just fighting a losing battle every time you're in the gym. You feel like a little more down the dumps. You're tired. You're not feeling as great as you did. And it's just like, there's a maturity that has to be there to be able to understand like, this is my body recovering from what I did to myself. And there's a lot of people who are just dumb and they're like, well, I'll just get back on it or I'll, or whatever. I'll just never cycle off or something stupid, or so that
fucking
or they
blasting cruise.
That or they just allow themselves to get in the dumps and just like stop working out because they get depressed. And it's like there's just so many pitfalls there. It's just like why, as a general rule, it's better to say just don't fuck with it.
yeah.
But there is something too, like if you are, what you're doing, but most people don't do that. Most people don't do the research. Most people aren't emotionally mature. Most people, So one thing, the other one you brought up was the women. And I got to say, as a man who's been married since I was 19, that there is something to having a good woman. So, don't get me wrong. Like it's fun to chase trim, but like, there's something to having a good woman with you. And they do kind of make you better in a sense. And I think a lot of like the stuff I've talked about today kind of comes from that. Because if I had just been a single guy still chasing ass, like, because that's another big distraction is chasing ass, like for a young man, like, and don't get me wrong, there's something to it. Like, and it is a balance too. Because I do think a lot of people may disagree, but this is my personal philosophy is there's a balance. Like as a young man, there's some level of you kind of need to get some ass. Like, I think it kind of throws you off.
I think there's even a degree of like, entrepreneurial skills. Like for example, just like the cold approach, for example, you meet a young lady at a grocery store, goddamn girl, what's up? There's benefit to that. There really is a benefit to that. But if that's what all your time is going to, you look kind of like a pathetic fucking Lothario. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson, what is he, fucking 85 years old? And he's just struggling. He's like, please, just someone love me. Yeah. And it can be a bit of a time waster. And yeah, you're definitely right. You're definitely very right. Having the right lady around can definitely do you some good. But
and it plays into a lot of other things too. Like I think the chasing the women plays into the alcohol abuse, the tobacco abuse, because there's
it's the lifestyle.
Yeah, it's the lifestyle. Because I remember as a young guy when I was like 16, 17, 18, I was like getting hammered and like trying to stay hammered. And it wasn't even so much that I want to be drunk. It was more just like, I need to get that like edge where I can talk to women or whatever, which to some extent probably built some sort of social skills. But I think on the whole, it's like if I'd never got married and I just continued on that lifestyle, I just like now I'm like, what would have come of myself? Like, I just think I've been just too occupied, especially since I was I'm kind of glad I got married before Tinder came along, because I just would have been wrecking shop when Tinder came around,
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just, it's
Yeah.
probably for the better. I mean, part of me was like, oh man.
No, bro, I'm telling you, it's a slippery slope, dude. It's a slippery slope. I mean, you make one
Yeah.
bad step, with the lifestyle, you get a little bit too hooked up on the juice, the sauce, drinking, for example.
Mhm.
Or let's say, for example, you got a job where you get drug tested, but you met this girl and she wants to go smoke. Hey, you want to come over smoke a joint? And you say, yeah. You go over there, you might fucking clap cheeks. You might clap cheeks till the fucking sun comes up. But when you wake up the next morning or within the next month and you get drug tested and you lose everything you worked for because you got some fucking pussy, probably the same pussy she's been giving out to whoever the fuck else.
Yeah.
Was it worth it? Was it worth it?
No. Yeah.
It's a lifestyle.
There's something about having a good woman, like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it does kind of like, I'm sure it probably like reduces your testosterone to a extent, no longer having that chase, that like, that constant feed of like that adrenaline of, like almost like a lion going after the kill. But, I don't know, there's just something to it. I mean, I definitely would suggest it. I mean, I'm not saying everybody go out and get married, but there's something to having a good woman behind you, Yeah. Let's move into chapter 6, learning a skill. I think this is an important one. So I don't know if you want to.
Super important.
Yeah.
So yeah, going back to the fucking video games and all this bullshit. So in video games, like for example, and like survival video games is even picking up as like a kind of like a more popular category. And how about instead of like playing a video game where you go and build a cabin in the woods and you try and survive? What if you did that shit for real? What if you put a little fucking hair on your chest? You know what I mean? Learning a skill, learning something valuable. It's a good thing to have a trade. It's a good thing to have, a trade that will benefit society and you can turn a profit of. Me, for example, I work in healthcare, and I help other people, and in return, I get money for services provided. But it's so important to develop a task or anything that you've been interested in, you want to study and you want to study in depth. Having that passion will keep you, for example, you going back to your books and to your reading, having something that you want to stay invested in will keep you sharp and keep your ball rolling, in the long run for a much longer time. I think it's so important to learn something. We talk about going to the gym and getting on the juice and all this other shit, chasing girls, but continue to grow your mind. Just don't fucking zone out and become a goddamn zombie off these video games, movies, and bullshit. I don't really fuck with TV. I don't really do a whole lot of that shit. I definitely do a lot more reading than I do anything. That's very important. It's extremely important. And you can be whatever you want. For me, for example, when I was a kid, I don't know what it was about fucking lumberjacks and swinging the axes and bullshit. I was like, yo, if that dude goes out in the woods and he's lost, there's no telephones, I was like a kid. I was like, no mom's around, no nothing. Yo, he's going to be just fine. He's going to be all right. And I really respected it. I admired it. And it's something I wanted to study for myself. And I did. I spent almost like a good year and a half just, understanding, the kind of like the cardinal principles, wilderness, self-reliance. And, if you get lost, what to do, or, like, let's say you ain't going to get help. How are you going to help yourself? I really respected that. It's something I wanted, and it's a skill that I took and I gained. And for some people it might just be something like working on cars. It might be fucking training dogs, for example. There's so many different outlets. Just if it's something you're passionate about or something you've ever wanted to learn, don't sit around and do nothing. Keep your fire going, and that's part of how you keep your fire going, because lifting can kind of almost turn kind of into a grind, or like your job, for example. Studying the human body or studying pharmacology, for example, it can kind of turn into a bit of a grind. But if you keep that skill, if you keep that thing that you enjoy, that will kind of help kind of stoke the fires for, okay, I need to study and I need to stay sharp between the ears.
Yeah, I definitely, I don't really have a whole lot to add, but like, yeah, I think it's definitely true. I mean, but there is like I think there's something to keeping it simple as best you can and building up, and that kind of plays into stuff we talked about earlier. Cause like, yeah, I mean, like, for example, like the reading, like I started out simple, it's best to do something like you brought up, like bushcraft and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, I mean, start out simple, try to keep it enjoyable. Like, instead of like, immediately jumping in and going, getting a class or whatever, like, listen to like Jack Spirko's like, survival podcast or something like that. Cause it's like, I think like making it enjoyable is, to the best extent possible, is the best way forward, if you can. And it's gotta be something you to some extent enjoy, but like, it's like, I feel like a lot of people want to like have this like lofty, like I'm gonna do this. And it's like, but you kind of gotta like, I mean, there's certain things out there, like you said, like pharmacology, like you probably to some extent had to kind of just jump in because you have to do the college route and it's kind of, you're forced into it to some extent. But like to the best of degree possible, you should try to ease yourself into something. Cause I feel like, like what is it? For example, like what I always tell people, like a lot of people ask me like, what should I do when it comes to working out? And like, they'll ask me how to like, what routines they should do. And I was like, the best routine is the routine you stick with. Yep. Like, because it's like a lot of people will be like, want me to make them this routine. They're like, oh, just whatever you tell me, bro, I'll do it. And it's like, yeah, but will you do it for 4 months? Will you do it for 5 months? Are you going to keep working out? Like, or are you going to be like, because that's like a lot of people get like upset when I ask them a lot of questions. Like, are you okay with this? Is this going to bother you? Like, they're like, oh, just, I want to be like you. Just tell me what I got to do. And it's like, it's not that simple. Like, it's more just about making forward progression. And that's all there is to it, really, So,
yeah, and I think you make a really good point. So you see, like, that's a really great example going to the gym. There's a lot of dudes who are like, I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna get huge, and I'm gonna be the next fucking Arnold, right? But then they go there and they're like, wow, it really sucks having to bench this much. I really hate having to work shoulders this much, or fuck leg day,
Yeah.
So there comes a bit of a transition where but I like to do push-ups and I like to do like cable curls, for example. There's I think that like a hybrid, and that's what I was aiming for. Is there's a hybrid. There's what I have to study versus what I want to study. There's the things I have to do to achieve these goals. There's stuff I want to do just because I enjoy it, and I think that keeps it pleasant. It keeps it fresh. You avoid what's called flavor fatigue, where you're just doing the same thing. It gets kind of grindy.
Yeah,
that's a real thing.
It's just like I said, like how I'll take break. I usually will take breaks. I read pretty like lofty books, like from what most people would think. I mean, for me, I guess it's not too much because I see other people reading like Man, Economy, and State, and I'm like, But for me, I'm reading like philosophy books, which aren't as bad to me. But like I said, I usually will alternate, and I'll read like a comic book after. Like I got Earth X that's like lined up for after I finish this, and it's like because it's like even though I do enjoy the philosophy and stuff, it's like I also need kind of a more pedantic, break almost, like something that's a little bit more relaxed in a sense, not overthinking it, like not me like underlining passages and like, pondering different sentences and stuff. It's just like, well, that's cool. Captain America kicked his ass, Yeah. So, I think it kind of ties into the next one. The last chapter, it's the blood, and I'll let you explain that.
So if you're gonna do anything, at all, like I've never been now. This is more of on a personal note, but I've never been a fan of like being friends with something or to put myself into something just at the surface. Obviously, you have to engage with something a little bit to learn it. But if I want to get into something, I want to see the underworkings. I want to look at the greats. I want to see who came before me, and I want to kind of understand the inner workings and some of like the inner machinings of what it is. For example, Texas Hold'em. I love Texas Hold'em. I played poker for a very long time. Shout out to my watch. It's something I've always wanted to do. You look back at actually with YouTube is one of the best things. You can look back at the old the World Poker Championship, for example. You can see the greats from the 70s. You can see the greats from the 80s, like like for example Doyle Brunson. You can see Phil Hellmuth, for example. You look at the greats. I don't like to just get into something, understand it for it's at the surface, just so I can kind of like keep up with conversation, just to keep up with pleasant conversation. If I don't know anything about it, I don't give a fuck. We probably don't like the same things. I'm probably not going to like you. I don't give a fuck about you, to be quite honest. I'm gonna be nice to you, but I don't give a fuck. But if you understand things at their like deepest inner workings, it enriches you as a person, and a lot of the analogies will actually serve you later in life. Here's an example, and here's where this struck with me. So going back to pharmacology, medicine. If you take too much of a medicine, you're going to overdose and die. If you don't take enough of a medication, you're not going to get therapeutic benefit. The same thing can be said. So I played guitar, and I played guitar for a very long time. Therapeutic range actually can be can have like a very loose analogy to a vibrato on a guitar. If you give it a little bit too much of a bend, the note's going to sound like shit. If you don't give it enough, you're not doing any good. Therapeutic range is the exact same thing as vibrato, and those analogies, because I did leave home very young and I didn't, have a lot of really good guidance because I came from a little bit of a rough situation. Those things serve me later in life. So if you're going to pour yourself into anything, fucking pour yourself into it 210%. Go all the way down to the fucking marrow, That's really important. That's so important. If there's one point if there's one point I can make, if you're going to do something, it's worth doing right.
Yeah, I mean, this one is another one where I agree, but at the same time, I kind of don't, because I think it's a mixture. Because I do think there is something. It's always a balance of, do you want to be a master or a jack of all trades? I think it depends. Like, I do think there's something to both approaches. I mean, I'm kind of with you. I'm very ADD in the sense that I like to pick up, go into a new thing, and fucking learn as much as possible. But then after a while, I generally will get bored with usually a different topic. But even then, at that point, it's because it's like I've already, like, to some extent, but like I feel like I've learned a shitload about this, and I'll move on to the next thing. And it's not even so much a jack of all trades. It's like somewhere in between. And I do think there is something to that, but I get what you mean in that, like, you don't want to just get a very basic level, because if you only scratch the surface, I mean, do you really even understand it? It's almost like they always say like it's like you want to be able to teach somebody something, you know, that's the level you want to be able to get to, you know, because like if you don't, then you don't understand it. Like you'll understand something to the point where you can teach it to them. And but there is something to having like tools and toolbox. But like I said, once again, this is like I said before, I have like minor disagreements with my margins, and even then, I'm kind of like have been like thinking about this one. We're like, I agree, I don't agree, I agree, I don't know, like because I don't know. I more just do what makes me feel good and learning. And but that, like I said, my mind's ADD, and that I always like will kind of like explore the shit out of a subject and learn it pretty goddamn well, and then move on to the next thing, explore the shit out of that. And I guess I inadvertently kind of end up doing that anyways. So yeah, I don't know. But I'm still conflicted on whether I agree with you or not on that one.
There's a lot of trains of thought. There's a lot of trains of thought, and you're not going to pour yourself into something and go all the way down to its fucking core, and then be like, oh, I don't like this. There is a degree of browsing. There is a degree of finding things that vibe with you versus what doesn't vibe with you. I'm not really big into cheerleading, for example. That's not something I really get into. But if it's something you vibe with, just stay passionate about it. Stay passionate and go all the way to its core.
Yeah. Like I said, I mostly agree, and even then, I'm still like in my head, like going back and forth. But yeah, I mean, I do think that's the way to go, especially if it's something you actually give a shit about. Like, it's like don't just half-ass it, like learn it,
Yep.
But we've been going for a while now, so I think we're gonna wrap it up. Like I said, I really enjoy the book. I really highly suggest people pass it on. I'm really hoping you get around to doing a second volume. I don't know when you wrote this. Go for it.
So I'm like 8 weeks. So this is my second time in college. I'm actually December 26th. I'm actually 8 weeks away from graduation. New Year's next year. I'm starting the second one.
Oh, nice. So you're all right. Cool. I was kind of worried when I asked that question. I was gonna put you on the spot, and you're gonna be like, "Fuck."
No, I'm already on it.
Well, it's good. It's good because I mean, this is the foundations. This is kind of the set, and like I think this is a good start. I do think it's cool, and I like the audience that it clearly goes to. And there is something to it being brief. And like I said, I almost feel bad like having disagreements because it's like that's not what this one should be. It's like you're almost giving a prepackaged like here, take this to a young guy. You know what I mean? Like, and you don't want to like weigh them down with like, well, what about the Kantian objection? Or like they're just like, no, just here you go. If you disagree with it, like you can deal with that later. But take this and run with it. Like
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, do you have any other plugs? Like, you said you're working on the second one. Oh, one thing I brought up. Have you thought about making this into like a hardcover or something, or like, 'cause this would go really well as like a pamphlet? Because I mean, it's 30 pages. I mean, I don't know the process, so I'm talking out my ass here.
Possibly.
So I don't.
No, possibly.
Yeah.
Let me look into it for the second one. I didn't really do a whole lot. It was more about getting a lot of my thoughts on paper because I just kind of something kind of came over me, so to speak. More for the
hopefully we generate
more
interest here. So
watch for the second one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely want to. I mean, for me, it was kind of like I know me. I like to have a physical thing, personally. So I mean, like I had to be like Kindle, but like I mean, for some people they like that, but I'm more old fashioned, I guess. I mean, actually, a lot of people like that these days. But yeah. I mean, I prefer having. I mean, you can see all the books behind me and stuff. I prefer having physical.
I see that. That's quite the setup, damn.
Yeah, this is what I call my nerd room. My wife let me have an area.
Okay.
The rest of the house is hers. So. Yeah. You got any other?
Say there's something to have a good woman. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was actually blown away. This is literally in my room. This is what's called like a sitting room. It's like attached to my main room. I'm kind of blown away that she was like, you should do this with that when we got this house. Like, this is attached to the master bedroom. Like, you want this giant nerdy display right next to where you sleep? Okay.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, whatever. Yeah. I mean, really, actually, like whenever we show off the house, this is usually like she like is like goes and shows her friends like, look at this shit, it's fucking awesome. So like, yeah, no. And this is my like happy place, I guess. But you got any other plugs or was it just that? For now? Okay.
No,
cool.
I'm a full-time student right now.
Yeah. All right. Like I said, I hope we see that soon. I mean, you're gonna be working that. Everybody, I'm gonna put the link in the description for the book. I really highly suggest everyone go check it out. Thanks for joining us. We're gonna I'm getting at fucking had a brain fart there. Check out the Liberty Movement on Facebook. That's gonna be in the description as well. And if you like this, share, subscribe, like all that bullshit. So deuces. That's all I got. It was nice.
Dude, thanks for having me. This was awesome. Thanks for having me, Brody.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. This was great. Maybe we'll have to do it later if you ever do the second volume. When you do the second
for
volume.
sure. Yeah,
All
for
right.
sure, definitely.
All
We'll
right,
see you.
deuces. We're out.